But we are here to render a decision on Governor Ige's gubernatorial nominee number 583. This is for Christopher Ewan, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Board of Land and Natural Resources for a term to expire June 30th, 2022. You know, members, we just heard from the Senate President about the advise and consent process of the Senate, its constitutional and statutory mandated responsibilities. This committee undertook its responsibilities very seriously, and I thank all the members for being prepared for this, both of the hearings we had, especially in this process which involves the confirming of an individual who will be appointed to steward the state's natural resources and is responsible for ensuring that those resources will be preserved and sustained in perpetuity for the benefit of future generations. The committee was aware that this nomination attracted public attention and passionate testimony from both sides. The committee also notes that 2 committee hearings were held for the nominee. The first hearing was on May 13th, 2020, which because included over 35 governor messages that were under the purview of the Waterland Committee to various boards and commissions, the chair felt that the nominee did not get an appropriate amount of time, nor did the committee members get an appropriate amount of time to ask the nominee questions and allow them the proper opportunity to answer those questions. So we held a second committee hearing last week on July 1st, 2020, to give the nominee a full 2 hours to answer questions from the committee members, and the chair does appreciate the nominee's willingness to do that. During the hearing last week, I outlined the responsibility of the Board of Land and Natural Resources and what that entails, and that we would be evaluating the nominee based on his performance and decision-making as a BLNR member since July 2014, when he was first appointed by Governor Abercrombie to the present. The committee and the committee chair has concerns, and although I acknowledge that the nominee may have been an excellent and promising candidate when first appointed to the BLNR in 1990, and then again in 1995, and again in 2014, and again by the governor in 2019, your committee finds that extending, or the chair finds that extending the nominee beyond his 14-year-long tenure on the Board of Land and Natural Resources would inhibit efforts to promote the kind of open-mindedness, accountability, and innovative thinking ideal in the public servant who assumes this profound kuleana that comes with this decision. Specifically, the chair is concerned about a number of issues that came to light during the nominee's written and oral testimony, including the answers he provided in response to the committee's hearing questions. There was overwhelming testimonial evidence that the nominee has failed to employ his full authority as a BLNR member to protect the public's interest in our state's public trust resources. The nominee's candid responses during the 2 Water and Land Committee hearings made plain that vital information gathering, mitigation opportunities, enforcement authorities have been underutilized to the detriment of our natural resources, and that additionally, after reviewing a small sampling of the board's published meeting minutes, questions began to surface as to their accuracy and integrity, and the extent to which the nominee's personal bias interfered with the objective recording of the board's decisions. This issue is of particular concern to the chair because such actions could undermine the public's trust and confidence in this agency's actions. As all BLNR members, the nominee is a trustee of all public trust, natural and cultural resources in Hawaii. The nominee is obligated to make decisions that protect those public trust resources for the benefit of Native Hawaiians and all the people of Hawaii. The BLNR has the authority to protect the public and public trust resources through its decisions and has the following tools to mitigate adverse impacts. Some of those tools are denying permit lease applications, delaying approval of permit lease applications until additional information is provided, adding conditions that require actions by the applicant to reduce and or remedy harm to natural and cultural resources and the public trust beneficiaries that rely on them, requiring additional information, assessment studies, and or requiring meaningful, fair market value compensation for use of public trust resources. After reviewing the nominee's decisions over his latest term on the BLNR, the chair has come to the conclusion that the nominee demonstrates that he has failed to employ his full authority, as I just has outlined, as a BLNR member to protect Hawaii's public trust resources. During our committee hearing, we had and ask questions in regards to the Kahala Hilton Hotel, the Kalo'i Gulch, the Revocable Permit Task Force, the stream diversion and the East Maui watershed, the Napua Makani wind farm in Kahuku, and finally, we questioned the nominee about specific BLNR meetings and those minutes that the nominee has at least admitted to have prepared on multiple occasions. One board member also raised a question of the nominee's eligibility to be nominated to this position based on Hawaii Revised Statutes 171-4, which states and has apparently been part of Hawaii's law since 1962, that amongst other things, that the Board of Land and Natural Resources terms and qualifications of the board should be that there should be not more than 3 members on the board from the same political party. And so the chair, although, like I said earlier, believes that Mr. Ewan is a very thoughtful and highly educated person, and his prior service to our state is sincerely and deeply appreciated. However, due to the concerns raised by the committee, as highlighted in this report, that the chair believes it is time for a change and wishes the nominee well in his future endeavors. And so before I open it up for comments, it will be the chair's recommendation, after full consideration of the nominee's background, experiences, and qualifications, that the chair's recommendation will be to not advise and consent to Governor's Message number 583. And with that, members, do you have any comments?
I want to thank the nominee for his many years of service to the state of Hawaii. And, you know, with that many years of service, you're going to get into some controversies, and sometimes there's no win. You're going to make people mad one way or the other. And I don't think, and I'm going to be voting in support of your recommendation, Chair. I don't think it comes down to necessarily maybe nitpicking one particular answer or decision, but it's the pattern of decision making that has me concerned. When he served in the 90s, it was indisputable that people were really happy with the recommendations. When he was reappointed back in 2014 interim, and then 2015, people in the environmental community were very strongly in support of him and excited that he was coming back to serve. And so the last few years, something has changed, and a lot of the people in the environmental community are now no longer in support of the nominee. And what I seem to see as the pattern is there's a kind of a continuous maybe discounting of community concerns. The Kahuku wind farm is a classic example where this thing has been a catastrophe, and the community is beside itself, and it really does not deserve 568-foot wind turbines towering over their elementary and high school. And they've expressed that concern, and it was very loud and very clear. The nominee actually voted to support 656-foot turbines, nearly 100 feet taller than the ones that were ultimately built. So he didn't have, upon questioning, any reservation on the size or impact or concern for the community. He had predetermined that they were going to build these wind turbines, and they needed to go there no matter what. So when I asked him in our first hearing what he would tell the people of Kahuku, his comment was, well, he would hope that they would see them as a source of pride, which absolutely enraged all of the people of Kahuku. I think it was the wrong answer. It was the wrong, but it reveals, again, his decision-making process, that it didn't matter what the people thought. And in our second go-around last week, I asked several questions, again, trying to elicit his sentiment or concern if the public were concerned about excessive land use, or if they felt that it was excessive land use, or people were concerned about the geothermal developments. How would he factor that in? And he pretty much dodged the answer. So it's my thought that he goes into these things as an intelligent man, and he does his research, and he looks at things, but he's not willing to take advice from others. He's got his mind made up. For example, the Napua Makani contested case, of which I must disclose I was a party in that case with Keep the North Shore Country. The hearing officer recommended against the habitat conservation plan for Napua Makani And she gave various reasons, which have since been upheld or indicated supported by the recent bat guidance. So the people in the endangered species field, I think, have some real concerns about wind turbines. I don't think they're being addressed. The opeapea is a classic example. The bats have been taken in much, much greater numbers than anybody realized. And when pressed, the nominee just apparently didn't think that that was as great a concern as moving forward with the wind turbines, which, as I mentioned, was his want all along. So he discounted the hearing officer recommendations after a year of her intensive research. And he's done this many times. In East Maui for the water diversions this past year for Mahipono, the recommendation by the department was to recommend 35 million gallons a day diversion, and he unilaterally, or more or less unilaterally on the spot, deemed 45 million appropriate. In our second hearing this last week, we around that the water belongs in the stream, Chair, unless there's a need to divert the water, it belongs in the stream. And so it's not a matter of saying, well, there's plenty of water, just keep the hose flowing. Water belongs in the stream unless you can demonstrate a beneficial need. Mahipono has been doing good work, and they're growing more food and they're expanding, and I'm not in opposition to their request for water, but I do want it to be judicious. They had recommended that they would need 35 million, well, they said they'd be using 17 million gallons a day for diversified agriculture, and as it turns out last quarter, they used only 2.5 million gallons. So once again, the recommendation by the staff was for a smaller amount. Mr. Ewan decided that that wasn't enough. He was going to give them more because apparently he knew the issue better than the people making the recommendation. So that's the theme that we keep seeing back, whether it's the water in East Kauai or East Maui, or if it's the beach concessions in KAHELE or the Limu in Ewa Beach. It's a pattern of him knowing the answers and discounting everybody else's opinions. So I think I want to applaud the nominee for his years of service. 14 years, I think, is very noble. But I think, Chair, it's time for a change. I think it's time for someone else to be given the opportunity, and for those reasons, I will be supporting your recommendation. Thank you.
Any other members? Senator FEVELLA.
Same here. I'll be supporting the chair on this measure. The problem that I have, and I've been having since we started this process with Christopher Ewing, was I asked him way in the beginning, his resume and all his accolades and all the years of service doesn't describe the man that what I read and what I'm hearing and testifying and listening to his answers. He had no scientific fact that there was not going to have any pollution going into the ocean at Haubush and Oniwala Beach Park. But he just tried to justify his answer in every which way he can. Even when the chair had asked him about him doing minutes. Then after we had this broadcast on TV, and then Suzanne Keys emails me and saying that they don't have a problem. You know, that she never see any problem in a board member doing the minutes. Well, I've been on the neighborhood board for over 20 years. And all the 20 years that I probably was on the neighborhood board, not one neighborhood board member ever did their own minutes. Because there's no transparency. You know, and going forward with, not having more than one party, more than 3 party members on the party, then we get on email from, again, Suzanne Keys telling me that both of her and Chris Ewan resigned before the hearing starting. That's not true. So again, continuing for having not any transparency, even with Suzanne Keys, who's on the board too, instead of justifying and just saying, okay, we was an oversight with the situation with the party thing. But going back to 2014, Chris Ewing was a part of a bill, Senate Bill 2274, that cut, whatever you like to say, it was a New Mexico bill with the Ohio Forest. And they took 60 acres, and to this day, is still being cutted. Being cut down. So these are the kinds of stuff that he does to justify things that he do in his favor. And this is a very controversial subject when it comes to that Senate Bill 2274, because the gentleman that was a part of this will end up getting deported and being labeled as an illegal alien and got deported. So these are the kinds of stuff that we don't need in, especially being a part of something so precious, our land, our ocean. And just to say, oh, okay, just a few hours of rainwater is not going to contaminate the ocean, or this and this. I mean, the part, how can you go and say, it's okay, there's how much bats we can kill? And they never ever, to this day, as far as I know, never ever had an account of how much male and female bats there is before they even gave the go-ahead and allowing our endangered species. I don't think there's any place on the planet that allows things like this to happen. You know, I got comments saying, when I had this meeting, I had comments on Facebook saying, oh, you know, first time I hear a Republican is so much into environmental. I keep telling everybody, I am not a Republican of the mainland. I'm a Republican of Hawaii. And our natural resources is very precious to all of us, regardless if I'm a Republican, Democrat, Green, Purple Party, whatever. We eat from the ocean, we live off the land, we eat off the land, everything. That is precious to us, but has nothing to do with me being a Republican and voting with my colleagues that is Democrat. I do it because it's right by the people, for our land and ocean. And we having this kind of people going forward is only going to destruct the long term of our security, for our food, for generations to come. And that's the reason why I cannot see myself supporting Christopher Ewing going forward. He had a lot of years here. Thank you for your service, but we need to move on, and I'm going to support the chair on this measure. And thank you, and God bless.
Members, any other comments? Okay, you know, the chair would also like to note, because we have mentioned the nominee's 14 years of service on the land board, that should the nominee not receive confirmation by the Senate, that I would hope and encourage that the governor would quickly put out a request for applicants to other individuals who can apply for the Hawaii Island BLNR seat. I will note that out of the 10 BLNR members that the governor appointed to the land board, which includes the chair, that only 2 of those 10 have been women. The entire land board, the 6 members he's appointed to the BLNR are all men. And surely there has to be a broad, articulate, highly qualified, intelligent individual on Hawaii Island that could apply for this land board seat. I'll also note that when the previous board member, who was the Hawaii Island board member, decided to resign, the governor, within a matter of days, put the nominee into the Hawaii Island land seat without giving anybody on Hawaii Island an opportunity to apply. And that is the governor's purview, but this chair would strongly recommend, as the one who also lives and represents Hawaii Island in this body, that the governor give other people a chance on Hawaii Island to apply. I'll note that the committee report for the nominee will be filed by the end of the day tomorrow, Tuesday, July 7th. It will be uploaded to the Senate's Capitol website, and the public will have an opportunity to review the full recommendation by the committee chair, and that the final floor vote for Governor's Message 583 will go to the State Senate in the full body on Friday, July 10th. That will be at the end of this week. So if there are no other comments from the members, we will vote on Governor's Message number 583. And again, it will be the chair's recommendation to not advise and consent to GM 583, And so I will remind the members that a yes vote will be to agree with the chair's recommendation to not advise and consent, and a no vote will be to disagree with the chair's recommendation to not advise and consent to the nominee. Members, questions? Vice Chair Agron for the vote.
Chair's recommendation on Governor's Message 583 is not to advise consent. Chair KAHELE.
Aye.
Vice Chair votes no. Senator Nishihara.
A yes or what?
If you support.
A yes vote is to agree with my recommendation to not advise and consent, and a no vote is to oppose it.
Okay, Senator Riviere.
Yes.
Senator FEVELLA.
Yes.
Your recommendation is adopted.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.